Hi, and welcome back to part 3 of the Java Crash Course. In today's episode, we're going to be learning all about operators and expressions. Now, arithmetic is crucial in programming and in the real world. You'll hopefully know basic addition, subtraction, and multiplication, but now we can have the computer perform these operations for us. So, below are some examples of arithmetic in Java. We'll assume variables a and b are already defined to something. So, first we see simple addition. So, a plus b. So if a is equal to 2, let's say, and b is equal to 3, we'll say, what is 2 plus 3? It's obviously going to be 5. So Java can automatically add the variables for us together. Now this would also work if we just simply replaced a plus b to 2 plus 3. That'll do the same thing, but I just did variable a, variable b. So next we have subtraction. This is just the opposite of addition, as you know. So a minus b. So if a was 2 and b was 3 again, Java would give us -1. Now, multiplication, you can define this with a star symbol. So if a times b, if a is 2, b is 3, you're going to get 6, obviously. And to do division, you use the slash on your keyboard. And with division is a slash, so a slash b, or a divided by b. So if a was 6 and b is 3, Java's going to return 2. And you should probably already know arithmetic, these simple expressions from using maybe a calculator or something, but if you don't, here they are. So next we're going to go into assignment operators. Now we can use our newfound knowledge to actually modify our variables from their original starting point. In the last episode we had something like int health equals 100, but we just assigned that to an arbitrary value like 30 when we were reassigning it. So now that we've learned the arithmetic for this, we can actually deduct things from a variable. In the example below, you'll see int health equals 100 and health equals health minus 10. All this does is start health at 100 with int health equals 100 and deduct 10 health points away from it. Now why are we saying health equals health minus 10? Well, if we just did health minus 10, we aren't actually assigning anything to the variable health. We're just saying health minus 10, or 90. So we have to reassign the variable to the value. And of course, if we just did health equals 10, then health would just equal 10, and we wouldn't be deducting anything away from the 100. So let's go to IntelliJ in our project and see some examples of this. So maybe let's make a simple calculator. We'll say int num1 is equal to 10, semicolon, and int num2 is equal to 3. Now we can just do int result is equal to num1 plus num2. We can do system.out.println result. So if we run this, we will see 13 because we're adding the result of num1 plus num2. Now we could also do something like num1 is equal to num1 plus 5. So now num1 is equal to 10. What's 10 plus 5? 15. So if we just print out system.out.println num1 here, you're going to see the variable gets reassigned to 15 because we're adding 5 to the variable num1. Now logical operators is where it can get a bit tricky. We can see a few examples here, and let's just take this one step at a time. The first one you're going to see is saying if a is less than b. The second one is just the opposite of that, greater than, so if a is greater than b. And the third one is where it can get a bit confusing, but less than or equal to. So let's say you had a variable of health again. Well, what if we wanted to check if the health was 0? If we just did less than 0, then for the player to die, we'd actually have the health to be something like -1 or -2 because those are less than 0. But with less than or equal to, we can make it anything less than or equal to 0. Now the fourth one is just the same thing but reversed, so if a is greater than or equal to b. And the fifth one should be a bit more straightforward. A equals sign B. 2 equal signs is just a comparing operator. So if A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 5, this will equate to true. Now you're going to notice sometimes we're using 1 equal sign and sometimes we're using 2 equal signs. Now this can get very confusing when you're just learning programming. 1 equal sign is assigning something, so A equals 5, and 2 equal signs is comparing something, so A is equal to B. Next we have a exclamation mark equals b, or in more technical terms, a does not equal b. A equals 5, but b is equal to 4, this will equate to false because they don't equal each other. Exclamation mark equals is just the opposite of equals equals. because we're checking if it's not the same. And then finally we have the remainder operator. Really, I think I should have put this in the arithmetic part, but oh well. All this does is give you the remainder of something. So for example, A was 7 and B was 3. The remainder when you divide those together is 1. Another example is A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 4. The remainder of 2, because 4 can only go into 10 twice with 2 remaining. So now we can finally see some real examples of this. We have a variable declaring age to 18, and if you don't understand the variable part, just go watch the last episode first. And so now we're declaring another variable, is adult, but we're assigning this to age is greater than or equal to 18. So all we're doing here is checking if age is greater than or equal to 18, which will either equate to true or false. So let's go into IntelliJ and see some more examples of this. So I'm going to delete these two things here, but keep the variables. So we could say boolean is above 15 is equal to num1 plus num2 is greater than 15. Now, don't worry if you see a yellow underline under this. It's just telling you that it's always false because 10 plus 3 is never above 15, but just don't worry about that part for now. So now we can do system.out.println is above 15. And if we run the current file, you'll see false. But now if we make num1 18 plus 3, that's 21. That's greater than 15, so we're going to see true. So now we can also do is equal to 15. So let's make this maybe 10 and 5. So is equal to 15. So you can just make this num1 plus num2 is equal to 15. Make sure the two equal signs here are important. And then next we'll just change this to is equal to 15 and run the current file and we'll see true. But if you made this equal to 16 and we run it, we're going to see false. So I recommend going and messing around with this as it can be pretty fun. Next we're going to go to this. Now this is going to look quite confusing, but it's really simple if you pick it apart enough. The first logical operator we have is two and signs or two ampersands. So we already know what A is greater than B does, same with B is greater than C. So all the and symbol is doing is combining these. So if A is greater than or equal to B, and B is greater than or equal to C, then our results are true. But if A is greater than or equal to B, but B is not greater than or equal to C, it'll result to false, because both of them have to be true. Next we see the OR operator defined with two pipes. This is essentially the same thing as the example above, but however only one of these has to equate to true for the whole expression to amount to true. So if A is less than B, but B is greater than C, then it will result in true. However, if both of them are false, it will result in false, and if both of them are true, it'll still result in true. Next we see something similar to the first one. A is greater than or equal to B, and B is greater than or equal to C. But you'll notice before B is greater than or equal to C, we have an exclamation mark. As we learned earlier, exclamation mark equals means not equal. But if we put just an exclamation mark before something, like B is greater than or equal to C, it negates it or flops it the other way. So really, B is greater than or equal to C becomes B is less than or equal to C with it. Now this might be a bit confusing, so let's move on to some real examples of this. We see our int age variable again. The first two lines are the same as before, but now we see another variable here, can enter. So say their age has to be between 18 and 59 in order to enter. So we can assign can enter to age is greater than or equal to 18 and age is less than 60. You'll notice we put some parentheses around each of these expressions. While you aren't technically required to do this, it does make it a lot easier to read since we can see each individual expression clearly. So if our age is defined as 18, age is greater than or equal to 18 is true since our age is equal to 18. And if age is less than 60, well 18 is less than 60, so that equates to true. Since both of them are true, can enter results to true. We can just say boolean is less than 12 is equal to parentheses num1 is less than 12 and num2 is less than 12 semicolon. And now if we system.out.println is less than 12 and we run it, we're going to see true because both of these are less than 12. But if num1 was 15, this is going to be false because both of them have to be true and only this one is true at the moment. If they're both false, it's going to equate to false because they both have to be true. But if we were to do something like an exclamation mark before these two, we're going to see true. Because we're essentially saying if num1 is greater than 12 with these, because if num1 is not less than 12. Now, don't worry if it's still confusing, you'll get the hang of it over time. So what we did with the booleans were essentially just condensed if statements. So the example below, we see if condition run this, else run this. If statements are one of the key fundamentals of programming. We can put our condition in the if statement here. For example, 5 is equal to 5 says true. We can put our condition in the if statement here. For example, 5 is equal to 5. And so if the condition is true, which it is, we'll run this. However, if it's not true, we'll run this. Now, it's not actually needed to have the else condition here if we don't want to do anything if it's not true. So now we see our health variable again. So we're using one if statement to check if the condition of health is less than or equal to 0, and if it is, we'll print out you died to the console. Otherwise, we'll just do nothing since we want the player to continue living. So we can actually put this boolean into an if statement to make it more easy to read. So we can say if parentheses num1 is greater than 12 and num2 is greater than 12, system.out.println, they're both greater than 12, else system.out.println, they're not greater than 12. So we're going to see the first one here because they're both above 12. So if you run this, they're both greater than 12. But if we made this maybe 11 and 10, it's going to say they're not greater than 12 because this right here is not true. Now, this will work perfectly even if we remove the if statement here. You're just not going to see anything because we're not having a separate expression. Because all it's doing, since these are not true, is just skipping what's in these curly braces here. Now we're at the end, but let's take some practice to make sure you actually retain some of that knowledge in your brain. I want you to create two variables storing any number you'd like. You should add 3 to the first variable and multiply the second variable by 4. Make an if statement that checks if either of the variables are even, and if they are, print out something to the console. And if they aren't, print out another thing. I recommend you pause the video and try and do this on your own. So hopefully you were able to get that. Now your code doesn't have to look fully identical to mine, but hopefully it should be close. If your code didn't work or you got stuck at some point, it'd be immensely helpful to rewatch the video now that you understand at least some of the concepts. If you still can't figure it out after rewatching the video, you can ask me in the comments. Now let's go and see how the solution looks like step by step. So the first thing we're doing is declaring two variables, int a is equal to 13 and int b is equal to 2. We're then adding 3 to a, which is making it 16, and then we're doing times equal 4 to b to make it 8. Now I already hear you saying plus equals and times equals, we never learned that. So a plus equals 3 is the exact same as doing a equals a plus 3. It is the exact same, and all it is a shorthand. You can use this if you'd like, or if a equals a plus 3 is more concise and easier for you to read, you can do that. So it doesn't matter which variation of that you use, but any variation of that will work. So next we're seeing if a is divisible by 2 with no remainder. Any even number is divisible by 2 with no remainder. So a is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8 with no remainder. 4 times 2 is 8 divided by 2 is 4 with no remainder. And if either of these are true, which they're both true in this case, it's printing out even. Else, if none of them are true, we're saying odd. So if we run this, we're going to see even. So I hope you were able to figure that out. If not, I really can't recommend enough to rewatch the video first or try and look it up. Understanding the concepts in this video is going to make everything continuing forward so much easier. Anyway, that'll do it for this part of the Java Crash Course. Show some love by pressing the like and subscribe button, and next time we'll be learning more about conditions, like the if, else, and switch statements. Along with we'll be making a simple calculator which is going to build off of this video.